the first time I saw a sky basically totally untouched by modern light pollution was when I was 17, and I climbed to the summit of Mount Kenya, and it took about 9 days. And I remember the night before we got to the summit, we pitched our tent on the mountainside, and I stuck my head out of the tent and I looked up, and across the entire sky was this band of mist. And the sky was filled with innumerable stars and shooting stars, and then there was this just band of mist, and I stared at this band of mist stretching across the entire sky for about 5 or 10 minutes before I realised that I was looking into the Milky Way, that this band of mist was actually just an almost infinite number of stars that I was looking at. When you look at the stars like that, and when you gaze into the universe, something very weird happens within you, because the universe is magical, and I don't mean that in a rhetorical sense. I mean univocally, the universe is magical, and the stars are magical, and the planets are magical, and their magic is also relational with us, right? And we are the loci of that magic as well, and we can give the magic of the universe agency with our own cooperation with its author, namely God. Something very strange is conjured in the depth of one's heart when one gazes into the universe. You know, you think of what Thomas Aquinas says in the Summa Contra Gentiles. He says that if I were to try and describe the goodness of somebody, I would need a certain number of words available to me to convey their virtues, right? And so we have a complex language so that we can describe things in that way. Well, God wanted to convey his goodness to that rational creature, that part of the universe who could comprehend such a communication. And he wanted to do that with his own created order. So the whole of the universe is the language of God. And when you gaze into the universe, you are actually looking at the declaration of the infinite Godhead about his own goodness that he wants to disclose to you. Because God's goodness is so great, it being infinite, that he needed not one or two beings to convey that in the created order, but he needed almost an infinite universe so that he could convey to us something of his own goodness, truth and beauty. So when you gaze up at the created order like that, you realise that this is actually this incredible apocalypse, right? It's an unveiling, in the true sense of the word. It's an apocalypse of God. It's the unveiling of God in the created order, and it moves something in the depths of you. It's like you're coming as close as you possibly can to your absolute purpose and finality, that for which you exist. And this is why we have to realise that if we have that understanding of the created order, to operate against it, because you've got a mythology of progress and self-emancipation, to build against it, to think that something is only creative if it's desecrating the landscape, if it's in opposition to the landscape, if it covers up the created order, if its light strikes the stars from our purview, if the buildings mar and disfigure and deface the landscape that we've been given. If we're stuck in this paradigm where nothing is really true or authentic unless it's some way an act of violence against that which we have received, then all we can do is become more and more demonic. And that is basically the rut in which we're stuck in modernity. And that's why I'm so obstinately anti-modern.
It really saddens me, your description of the stars is so deeply moving. It saddens me, though, that I have a 4-year-old son, and his entire life, he's never really seen any more than occasionally 1 or 2 stars in the sky. And he might go the entirety of his childhood, unless I make a colossal effort to go somewhere halfway around the world, really far from technological modernity, he is not going to experience what you've described as a child at all. And it really deeply saddens me what kind of deprivation of a very profound spiritual kind that's going to be to him.
Well, when he's a teenager, you should send him off on a hunting trip in the Great Karoo.
That's certainly my plan of some kind. Hunting, where exactly I don't know, but I really you have to make extra effort. The absurd situation that you might have to travel to a different continent just to see the stars that 20 generations ago every single person would have seen every single night, and that would have informed their contributions to building the urban landscape. This is why when you go to one of the old German towns that wasn't flattened during the war, and it's filled with this incredible artisanship, with incredible, wonderful, hard to even describe, eccentric topography of construction, it's so deeply enchanting because the people who built that had your experience that you've experienced just 2 or 3 times in your life. That was a continuous experience of the night time. It was constantly being informed in their deep interior spiritual lives by this utter awe and grandeur. And that filters out through the hands and the feet and the eyes and the tongue, the music that was being created, the buildings that were being built.
Yeah, they were in tune with the world.
Exactly.
That's the point. They were in tune with the world. And the city has lost its relationality with that on which it depends, namely the landscape. So townscape and landscape have been sundered. And this is why we get the kind of dichotomy-based conversations about whether we should rewild Christianity or whether Christianity is compatible with urbanism or whatever. Townscape and landscape, or cityscape and landscape, were always correlated principles.